For this haircut, we're going to do a short fade around the outline of the haircut, and we're going to learn how to do some scissor over comb technique to cut a shorter top when we're dealing with curly hair. There's a trick to cut curly wavy hair. It's very difficult to pick up with your fingers, so we're going to use a scissor over comb technique. And then we're going to do, as I said, a tight fade on the sides, and then we're going to be also talking about how different head shapes affect different fades. In other words, how high or low we have to cut fades for any given head shape. Okay, we're going to start out on the top section. So the top section is going to be anywheres this area above the round of the head. We're going to start in the front and we're going to work our way back. So we want to keep this picture in our mind. We want to go all the way across the front. The hair is going to be longer in the front and it's going to be longer in the crown. The hair has to travel. The head is round, so the hair has to travel farther. And we always want to leave ourselves the option to go back and take a little bit more hair off the front. What makes these shorter fades stand out more is the longer tops and the longer fronts. So we're going to start in the center section. We're going to pull the bangs up at a 90-degree angle, and we're going to get our center guide. Now with wavy hair or curly hair, it's very difficult to pick the hair up with your fingers. And in many cases, it's difficult to pick it up with the comb. So I like to use a very thin comb, and the teeth are very close together. And it's easy to hold on to. So that really grabs the hair, no problem. So as I said, we're going to go right down the center, get our center guide, and then we're going to work off that guide on each side. I'm going to start on the left side after I go down the center. I'm going to find my center guide. So I'm going to be working with two guides. I'm working with my center guide and my previous guide. Always keep the comb parallel to the floor when you're on the top section. Okay, and I'm going to take one more section. And that last section, you're not going to wind up taking as much hair. Just keep that comb parallel to the floor, and whatever is in the comb, cut it. You don't need to go looking for hair to cut. You want to keep that comb parallel to the floor. Now we're going to come across and we're going to do the right hand side. It's okay to turn your client's head a little bit towards you without reaching all the way across. Locate your center guide and take one section to the right hand side. And then we're going to do it again one more time. Now with the bangs, we don't want to comb the bangs straight down and cut straight across. It's going to look like we just put a bowl on his head. What we're going to do is we're going to come in the front and we're going to elevate the bangs up and out a little bit that way, and we're going to cut them this way. And I'm going to take an imaginary line straight up in the air. So that's going to cut some length and layer them in and blend them into the top without leaving a straight line across the front. Okay, so now when we comb the bangs straight down, they're obviously shorter, but we don't see a blunt straight line going across as if we put a bowl on your customer's head. So that finishes up the top section, and then we'll move on to the next section of the haircut. Before I get into the fade area with the clippers, I noticed there's a little bit of a weight line around the outline of this haircut from this gentleman's previous haircut. So the first thing I want to do is I want to blend this area into the top before I go in with my clippers, because this is going to be a distraction to me as I'm doing the fade unless I completely blend this into the top before I move on. So I'm just going to start out with my scissor and comb technique and very carefully just blend that out. Now, I don't want to round it too much into the top, just enough to take that little bit of a weight line off. Now what causes weight lines is if you make a few cuts and stop. Whenever you start cutting, you want to follow it all the way through until you run out of hair. So you want to pick a cutting plane like this and follow that cutting plane all the way through. If you stop halfway in between, you're going to wind up with a scissor mark or a weight line. You could also do this clipper over comb, whatever you're more comfortable with. And then in the back, it's not too bad. So just because you're cutting someone's hair doesn't mean you have to cut every hair on their head. If I start cutting into here, we're in danger of the crown or that cowlick area standing up, which I don't want to do. And back here, there's a little bit of a weight line again. We're going to blend that out. And basically what you're doing, if this hair was long enough and you could pick it up here, you would see a little bit of a point, which is a weight line, and you would be cutting that off, but it's just not long enough to do that. So, okay, now that we're completely blended into the top, it's okay to move on to the clipper cutting or fading portion of the haircut. Okay, now we're moving on to the fading portion of the haircut. And what I like to use is I like to use a detachable blade clipper. So these are actual metal blades that come on and off the clipper. You want to make sure your clipper is on when you're fitting the blade on there and closing it. I'm starting out with my largest attachment, or my largest blade, which is 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to work my way down to the length that I see fit around the edges. But the first step is I want to blend into my top guide, and I want to remove the bulk here. It's going to make, in other words, I like to start longer and work shorter. So when I get to the round of the head section, which basically is the parietal ridge, the parietal area, I let the parietal area push the teeth of the blade away, and I take an imaginary line straight up in the air, and that avoids a heavy weight line that we have to blend out. So this is a 3/8 blade, and we're going to work our way all the way around with this. Dip down slightly lower in the back to allow for the crown. We don't want to get too close so it's not sticking up. The slower you work with your clipper, the more efficient you're going to be, the faster you're going to be done. So your haircut's going to be better and you're going to be done faster. The speed comes in with only having to do each step once, not working faster with your tools. Okay, so that's our 3/8 of an inch blade. Now we're going to work down to our 1/4 of an inch blade. So while your clipper's still running, we put your blade on and close it. I want to leave a 1/2 inch separation in between blades to cause that fading effect. If I go up too high, we're not going to see any difference in the length of hair, and it's going to look like there's a line. So we want to make sure we leave off about a 1/2 inch below. Let the round of the head push the teeth of the blade away from the head, and follow that imaginary line straight up in the air. And that's going to blend it right into that last section without leaving any lines of demarcation. Dipping down slightly lower in the back to allow for the crown. And now when we come back with our next blade down, we're going to have minimal blending to do. So as you can see, this is much easier than going all the way, before even cutting the top, the first thing you do is go all the way around the head with your shortest blade and leave a heavy weight line around the head. It's way too much work to blend out. This way we're completely eliminating the most stressful step, which is the blending step. Okay, so the next blade down is an 1/8 of an inch. Now this equates to a 1.5 blade on our metal blade system. Now these 1.5 blades are also outstanding for cutting clipper over comb. It's the perfect length where it cuts hair and blends at the same time. So as we're working our way around here, around the sides, we can also take and do a little bit of clipper over comb. And just by using the teeth of this blade over comb, we're going to blend it right into the top. So now we have a smooth blend right into the top, and we're going to continue around the perimeter of the haircut. So make a few passes with the 1.5 blade. Remove all that thickness. And when you get about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch below you left off with a 1/4 inch blade or the 2 blade, just very slowly arc the clipper out. And the hair's going to fade right in. And sometimes you have to go in a few different directions. No guy's head is shaped perfectly. We all have different indentations. So right here where you see a dark spot, there's a little bit of an indentation. So you grab the scalp with your thumb and you stretch, and that pops the hair out and it allows you to get into that indentation a little bit to avoid having any dark spots. So then we just take that dark spot right out of there. And then we're just going to continue on all the way around. And then we get closer to the top, we'll do a little blending. And the other thing I want you to notice too is I have not moved my feet. I stand in one spot and I just turn the chair. Very efficient way of cutting hair. That way you don't keep whacking your customer in the face with the clipper cord, you're not swinging it around them. And don't be afraid to go slow with the clipper. Make sure we catch all the hair. And then don't get too far ahead without taking a few cuts here in the blending area. So we're doing two things at once while we have the 1.5 blade on there. Then we switch to our underhand grip with the clipper and go through and just blend that in. And we have the exact same thing on the other side, a little indentation right here, so we're going to grab the scalp and stretch. A few passes at the blend as we're working our way around. Now for the blending, there's two things we're going to do. We're going to start out with the heel of the blade on the comb. As we work our way towards the top, we're going to slowly pull the heel of the blade away to the tip. So we're going to go from cutting and blending to just blending. And that's what it should look like all in real speed. And then we're going to finish this portion of the fade with our 1.5. Okay, now we're going to move down to our next blade size, which is the 1/16, which in the metal blade system is a 1A, and I'm only going to go halfway. And I'm going to use the scooping motion when I get halfway to the top. And this is going to give us a nice fading effect. And if you ever have trouble grabbing the hair, don't be afraid to just stretch out the skin. Okay, and we're going to do this all the way back around to the other side. And make sure as you use that scooping motion away from the head that you go very slow, so you allow that hair to fade into that previous length, that previous longer length. And if you don't get all the hair, some of it's thick around here, if you don't get all of it, don't worry, we're going to be coming back with our adjustable clipper and a shorter blade right there to taper that out. So it's not necessarily that we get everything on this step. Okay, then we're going to go all the way through to the front temple area. Okay, and then after we complete all this, we're ready to move on to the semi-finish area. Okay, now we're moving on to the next section, which we call the semi-finish section, and I'm going to use my adjustable blade clipper. It's an adjustable blade clipper because the lever moves up and down, so this is much easier than taking the blade on and off the clipper. We're going to be working in a 2-finger width area around the outline of the haircut, so it's going to be much easier. We're going to start out longer and slowly work our way shorter as we work our way around. So we're going to start out with the clipper in the open position. We're going to use a scooping motion, about a 1-finger width around the outline of the haircut. And then I'm going to come back and close the clipper halfway down, and I'm going to do it again and not go as high. And then I'm going to close the clipper down all the way and do it again and not go as high. And we're going to do that all the way around the outline of the haircut. So as you turn your client around, don't be afraid to bend the head. So the clipper, the blade is in the longest setting with the lever all the way open. I'm going to go about halfway across the middle. Then I'm going to close the clipper halfway down. I'm going to do the same thing and not go as high using the scooping motion. And then I'm going to close it down all the way. Using the same scooping motion. So now we have a nice taper, and when we come back, we're just going to line it off. So now open the clipper blade back up and do it again. Come all the way across the second half. Going to close the clipper blade down halfway. Then we're going to close it down all the way, each time not going quite as high, still using the scooping motion and still keeping the clipper parallel to the floor. We don't want to round it in because we're going to round that corner off. Open it back up. Now we're going to start working on the other side. Now we're going to close it down halfway. Now we're going to close it all the way. Open it back up. And when you pull that ear down, that hair really pops out, so we can grab that hair. Run it over the sideburns and right through the temple area. Now we're going to close the clipper halfway and do it again. Now we're going to close it all the way. Come right back through the temple area. Okay, the next step is the finish. We're going to come back with a trimmer. I like the T outliners the best. T blade means the blade comes out wider than the case of the clipper, which makes it easier to get around the corners of the ear. So we're going to line off the sideburn. And then in the front, we're just going to clean. We're not going to give them a deep outline or a deep edge up. We're just going to clean up a little of the loose hairs there. Going to pull the ear down. Clipper's very sharp, so I like to get the hair in this direction instead of taking the clipper and pressing down. If you're using especially this particular trimmer, it's the sharpest one, and the cutting blade is very close to the stationary blade, and especially with the ear where the skin is loose, you're in danger of irritating the skin. Okay, so now on the other side where we have this nice taper, we want to keep our line on an angle. We don't want to cut in and cut that off. So we're just going to line it and shave to it. Okay, and then as we work our way around, we're going to do the same thing on the back of the neck. We don't want to get close to our taper. We still want to keep that separation between blade lengths. That's what causes the fading effect. Now same thing on this side, we're going to do a nice straight line. Now that hair is very short, so you're not going to really see a distinct line, so it doesn't mean you have to press harder with the clipper or go in. Just press very gently with the clipper where it's supposed to be and leave it alone. Pull the ear down, get those few hairs around the ear. Okay, and as we come around, we're going to line off the sideburn. And then again, not taking a deep taper or deep edge up, we're just going to clean up some of the loose ones. Okay, so now the haircut is complete and we're ready to finish off with a straight razor outline. We're going to take a moisturizing shaving cream, lotion, and we're just going to put a little bit on the outline of the haircut where we're going to do the shave. And we're going to do that all the way around. I like to just put a little bit of moisturizing cream on instead of shaving the client dry in this area. We don't want to leave any irritation, so just take the extra step to put a little moisturizer on there first. And we're going to take the straight edge. I like to use a nice heavy duty razor with disposable blade so everybody gets a fresh blade. I'm going to palm the head, stretch the skin, and very lightly go over it. Wipe the shaving cream off so you can see where you're left off with your trimmers, and you're also feeling for any moles or pimples. Okay, and then as we move our way on the side, same thing, wipe it off so you can see your line. Stretch the skin. Keep moving your stretching finger. Don't let your finger stretching the skin get too far away from the razor, so make a few passes, then re-grip the skin. And we don't want to get too close to the taper either because we don't want to cut a hole in that nice tapered outline that we have. And to get along this angle here, we switch to our backhand stroke. Then in front of this ear, same thing. We palm the head, stretch the skin very lightly in front of the ear. And then we do the same thing on this side, backhand stroke, palm, and stretch. And the trick with the razor is you don't press on the skin. You hold the razor in your hand and you're just gliding it over the skin. It's sharp enough where it doesn't require any pressure. Okay, and then when we're done with that, we can just remove the towel and gently blot the shaving cream off. You never want to rub. Okay, and then after we're done with this, then we're going to go ahead and style this customer's hair. Okay, we've discussed ahead of time that this customer, he likes his hair with a wet look, and he likes the spiky look. He likes his hair to stand up tall, so we're going to use a heavy duty working wax. So we're going to rub it in there really good, so it's going to give him a wet look and really stand his hair up. And it's really going to accentuate the fade. So work it in there good with your hands all the way through. And then we're going to give you a 360 view of the finished product. And there you have it. Got a 1/16 of an inch fade with a nice close taper, which is about a 1 finger width around the outline of the haircut.